or the Supreme Court. And, so much for this whole notion. We always expected to play some type of respectability politics when no one else is. We're going to abide by the McConnell rule and do all we can to prevent this nomination. Here to talk to us about that specifically, and happy to have her with us. Folks, join us on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube as we stream this segment as well. She's the War Room Director of the Democratic Party, Adrienne Watson. Adrienne, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. How are you doing?
Just fine. Pleasure to have you.
Thank you. It's been a busy week.
It has. So talk to us about what the War Room has in store for Brett Kavanaugh, if you would.
Well, so far we've just been educating, reporters and folks everywhere about what his record looks like. We know exactly why the president chose Kavanaugh. He is a threat to Roe versus Wade, a threat to women's health, a threat to everybody's health, everybody who likes the Affordable Care Act. So these positions are not popular with Americans. Polling shows us that strong majorities of Americans support the ACA. They don't want Roe versus Wade to be overturned. So we are working really hard here and doing everything we can to get folks to call their senators, to mobilize in states. We're using it as an opportunity to organize on the grassroots level with our state parties and get people fired up so that they know that this is not a fight that we've lost. And the best thing that you can do if you care about this is to get involved in politics and vote in November.
So that's what we're asking, all good Democrats to do, obviously. But what about? Because I'll be very honest with you. I've been talking to listeners a little while ago, and they're trying to read what Senate Democrats are going to do. And if you could help us understand how your role or the Central Party's role plays in that. Obviously, what you're saying makes perfect sense. That's what we need people to do, to call that number on Capitol Hill.
Yep.
But are you aware of, is there any coordination with the Senate Democratic leadership to actually somehow block this?
I think they're taking it really seriously. We coordinate to the extent that we're able. Democrats, as we know, we may not have a majority in the Senate right now, but we have a majority of senators who believe in women's health and believe in upholding the Affordable Care Act. Just last year we saved it twice from being repealed. And so I'm sure the Senate strategy is to hold these, our Democratic caucus is so committed to these values of holding the ACA up and preserving women's health. And then, that's you just need one or two Republicans. And it's going to be difficult, but we've done it before. We did it with the Affordable Care Act last year. So it's certainly within the realm of possibility.
Yeah, yeah. So what is it that those who are listening, tell us again what they can do today, Adrienne?
The absolute best thing you can do is call your Republican senators and tell them that a vote for Kavanaugh is a vote to take Roe versus Wade and likely overturn it. And it's also a vote to, threaten the basic principles of the Affordable Care Act. And, we won't stand for those things. And they know it. I think Republican senators are really scared to talk about health care after not being able to pass a repeal of it twice. So the best thing you can do is call your senator today. But it's also really organizing in your community, wherever you are, getting in touch with, the Democratic Party in your state, getting in touch with all these amazing groups that are doing incredible work and, knocking on doors and voting for Democrats in November, because, the best thing we can do to prevent this from happening is having more Democrats in the Senate and then having eventually having a great infrastructure for electing a Democratic president in 2020 so that we can get rid of this guy.
How do we know for sure that he's a direct threat to Roe? What do we know about his history and the way he came about?
The first way we know is that President Trump chose Kavanaugh, and Trump himself has said repeatedly that a litmus test for his Supreme Court nominees would be whether or not they agree to overturn Roe versus Wade, right? So Trump has said he wouldn't put anyone on the Supreme Court. He wouldn't nominate anybody who he didn't think would agree to do that. But Kavanaugh himself has made decisions about women's health that are not, certainly not in line with our values. He has struck down the birth control mandate of the Affordable Care Act, and in this really important case, he voted to block a teenage immigrant from being able to immediately obtain an abortion while she was in the custody of HHS.
Mm-hmm.
So he has a record already of threatening women's health and our choices and our freedoms.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. We also know from the administration, and I noticed that the party had actually tweeted this out just yesterday. And again, folks, that number to call is 202-224-3121. But you all had tweeted what Mike Pence had actually said. And let's. I want people to hear that. Can you bring me up, please, Brittany? No, that's not it. Hold it. I got 2 or 3. When you have all this other stuff, when you have all these auto plays. Okay, I think I'm ready now. This is an interview with Dana Bash. Let's take a listen.
2006, Brett Kavanaugh testified that Roe versus Wade is settled law. You campaigned extensively on the notion that Roe versus Wade should be consigned to the ash heap of history. Are you worried that he's not going to follow what you want to do?
Well, Dana, as you know, I'm pro-life. I don't apologize for it. And I'm proud to be part of a pro-life administration that's advanced pro-life policies. But what I can assure you is that what the president was looking for here was a nominee who will respect the Constitution as written, who will faithfully uphold the Constitution in all of his interpretations of the law.
Do you still want Roe versus Wade to be overturned?
Here. Well, I do, but I haven't been nominated to the Supreme Court.
Right, but you're part of the administration that campaigned, you and the president campaigned, saying you will find nominees to overturn Roe versus Wade. Will you be disappointed if he is given that opportunity and he doesn't? Will you be disappointed?
Well, let me say, as I said, I stand for the sanctity of life. This administration, this president are pro-life. But, what the American people ought to know is that, as the president said today, this is not an issue that he discussed with Judge Kavanaugh. I didn't discuss it with him either. What we really focused on was the character, the background, the credentials, and the judicial philosophy.
But again, you campaigned so aggressively on finding a nominee who would overturn Roe versus Wade. Do you feel confident? Can you assure the people who voted for you on that notion that this is the man who will do that?
Well, what I can assure people that voted for us is that this will continue to be a pro-life administration. From early in this administration, President Trump has taken decisive steps to advance pro-life values at home and frankly in foreign aid around the world. But what I can also assure people is that the president believes that the proper consideration for a nominee to the court is not about litmus tests. I mean, frankly, we've seen enough of litmus tests over the decades. What we don't want is to have people go to the courts with a specific objective or policy criteria. We want people to go that respect the Constitution as written, will not legislate from the bench.
Right.
And President Trump and I are absolutely convinced
did say that
Judge Kavanaugh is exactly the kind of jurist that the American people in the majority want to see.
So that's there you have it right there. I mean, he's trying to pretend as if
exactly what they want Kavanaugh to do.
Yeah, I mean they're trying to pretend as if it's going to be something different with Kavanaugh, but it's not, is it?
it's pretty clear. And Mike Pence has said before that he wants to see Roe versus Wade, sent to the ash heap of history. I think it's also really important that Mike Pence is, really involved in this process so far with Kavanaugh. He's, been taking him around the Senate to meet different senators and escorting him. He played a key role in picking the finalists in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
And it's obvious that he has a deep hatred himself for Roe versus Wade. I don't even think he could deny that to Dana Bash.
Yeah, yeah. So no, that you're absolutely right, folks. Brett Kavanaugh, and of course there are other issues. We're focused on the Roe issue now because that seems to be the one where there is the clearest line where Kavanaugh will draw against the rights of women. Although, to be honest, Adrienne, he's ruled in favor of voter ID.
Yep.
He's on the record of saying that a president should not be under criminal investigation unless
Exactly.
unless
Yep.
his last name is Clinton, Bill or Hillary, obviously. Uh, and lastly, he's also, ironically, he talks about separation of powers in that regard. But where was the separation of powers when, if what is being reported is true, Justice Kennedy was negotiating with the White House for months to pick Kavanaugh himself? I mean, that's
Right.
highly unusual.
Very disturbing.
Yeah. I mean, I think the whole lot of justices turning over in their graves, Adrian, if they knew they could do that, they might have done
Wow,
something
I
a little bit
know.
different. You know what I mean?
And you wonder who leaks that information. Also, it also seems to me like a White House who's, trying to make this seem as if Kavanaugh was, so anointed by Kennedy, and he, that we shouldn't consider him to be this extremist that he is, right?
Yeah. So, while you all just heard Pence say that we don't want to do the litmus test, and while I'm sure if in any hearings, well, first of all, let me ask you this: do you have, and I know I'm putting you a little bit on the spot, but we don't have a lot of procedural moves because the filibuster is gone for this. But am I wrong, Adrienne? Couldn't the Senate Democrats prevent a quorum in either the committee or the regular Senate proceedings? Do you have an answer for that? And if you don't, that's fine, because it's kind of, the Senate has some arcane rules. But do you have any understanding of that?
I've heard that floating around a little bit. I think that, regardless of, we should pull every procedural move that we can, but ultimately what we need to move right now is just public opinion of making people understand, why, what is at stake with this. I have no doubt that Senator Schumer will pull out all the stops when it comes to, really, really making sure that Kavanaugh does not become a Supreme Court justice. But I think it's going to probably come down to some bipartisanship. We'll need a little bit of help from, like I said, a majority of the Senate. Susan Collins and Senator Murkowski are, they are supportive of keeping Roe versus Wade in place, and they are supportive of a lot of the Affordable Care Act. And so, the best path forward is really just standing our ground on those two issues. Though the quorum thing is definitely interesting, and I see why it is an interesting argument to make.
Yeah. Adrienne Watson, folks, she's in the war room over at the Democratic Party. Tell us again, Adrienne, the phone number for people to call and what they ought to be saying to senators once they get them on the phone.
Well, you can visit Democrats.org, and we actually have a call tool. It's just Democrats.org, where all you have to enter is your zip code, and we'll connect you with your Republican senator. And if you don't have a Republican senator, we'll just connect you with Mitch McConnell. But once you call, what we need you to say is just, a vote for Kavanaugh is absolutely unacceptable. We see through the smoke and mirrors Republicans have put out. We know that this is a vote that threatens women's health and threatens health care everywhere. It threatens, consumer protections like pre-existing conditions protections that we got under the ACA. And, we are not going to have those be taken back. We're not going to roll back the clock. So no vote for Kavanaugh.
Yeah, folks, go to Democrats.org and you can get in, add your name to demand a fair and qualified Supreme Court justice. Please, ma'am. Please, sir. Adrienne, pleasure to meet you, okay?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
All right, it is a pleasure. Thank you so much. We'll talk again soon. Let us know how other ways we can be helpful, because we're going to be in this fight for a minute,
Yes, totally.
We know that. Thank you so much. All right, take care now. 866-99-SIRIUS, 866-997-4748. Let's get a couple of calls in, obviously, on this topic. Ben's in Ohio. Ben, God bless you. Good morning. Get woke. Get ready for impeachment. Go right ahead.
Yeah, good morning, Mark. It's been a while since I've called in, but I just wanted to make a comment on what you said earlier about, about the Senator Chuck Schumer, and just the lack of energy is what I see in the way the pushback, so to speak, is being done. There's quiet, soft demeanor, and so on and so forth. And I just think maybe not get raunchy the way the Trump camp might do, but pushing back. Yeah, just pushing back, not so much in a rude way, but I guess the best model for that was Barack Obama. He just had a way of, 5 minutes after he said something to you, it dawns on you that you've just been called out, the mask has been pulled off, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You've been exposed for who you are. But the way he did it, didn't involve any foul language or anything like that. But it was, just forceful pushback, kind of like the Bruce Lee, boards don't hit back, and, just all the subtle stuff that just dawns on you that he just really pulled your mask off in front of millions of people. And that's the other way I think we can be more effective, is by finding a way to dominate that news cycle with some of that pushback. That's what Trump is masterful at, just dominating news cycles, keeping his name out there with all this outrageous stuff that people are forced to talk about, for days and days and days. And I don't see a counterbalance for that from the Democratic side.
Well, let's be honest. Part of that problem is there's no counterpart, because he's the only president, and the mainstream media is not going to promote Chuck Schumer or any other Democrat who they don't see is on par with Trump. That's part of our problem. People say, "Oh, we don't have a message or a messenger." Well, we don't have a Democratic nominee to run against him. Remember, even under Obama, because Obama was black, they kept John McCain out there even after he lost. They kept the mainstream media kept Mitt Romney out there even after he lost, because Obama was a black president. You got to have that. And they were on TV every day. They don't do that for us. Now, what Adrienne just said to us is she trusts that Chuck Schumer's going to do the right thing. I hope that she's right about that. But the fact of the matter is, they aren't going to put Chuck and Nancy or anybody else on television every day. Kamala, Corey, Bernie, Elizabeth. They're not going to put them on TV every day, because the appetite in the mainstream media is primarily, for Trump. Now, the only place I differ with you, frankly, I do think that we can be, just to use your word, a little more raunchy. Now, normally, I don't know what raunchy means to you, but normally when I hear the word raunchy, I'm thinking about, something else but
Yeah. Well, like you say, play the dozen.
yeah. So,
Playing the dozens and
I'm
all
for
that.
that. I'm for that.
Yeah. And I think Obama played the dozens, but
I
he
don't think
did
he
it in
did.
such a way. I
Yeah.
think he did it in such a way that was so smooth
We know a
that
lot,
people walked away thinking they got the better of it,
but a
and
lot of
thought about it and said, "Wait a minute."
but a lot of our listeners still wanted to see from time to time they would beg for the angry black man.
Sure.
They would. And
Yeah.
and as I was saying earlier, I think one of the mistakes that the Democrats make, I'm not saying about anybody in particular, but as I alluded to, it really kind of started with Obama. It's human nature when you're being bullied and you don't respond at all, you look like a loser.
Sure.
And it doesn't motivate or inspire anybody. You can't let
Right.
somebody keep calling you crying Chuck Schumer or Pocahontas
Right.
Elizabeth Warren, for that matter, or really low energy Jeb Bush. You just can't do that. What did
Right.
he do? All he could say was, "You're not going to insult your way to the presidency," and he lost like hell. I mean, you gotta,
Yeah.
that's just you're dealing with a child. So sometimes you have to, in an environment where people are attracted to that, and we're in this reality show culture where folk are fighting,
Yep.
and that's what people are into now.
Yeah.
You got to come up with. I'm telling you right now, if whoever the nominee is in 2020 don't come up with some names for him, we're done.
Yeah.
See, so let's say Elizabeth is the nominee, Pocahontas. She needs to call him Matrushka, or she needs to call him Poontang. I have no desire to run for president, but I'm telling you, bruh, if I could, just to alone play the dozens with him, call him, it'd be a whole different thing. That thing would flip.
Yeah.
Even some of the people who moderately support him would be like, hey, that's a pretty good comeback. I might have to go the other way. People who are into that.
Right. Right.
People who are into that and think on that, very, low level. Michelle says, they go low, we go high. But see, that's all relative, man. If they go in the gutter, we can still go higher than them, but still be on the ground. All right, we can still have a ground game going. We ain't got to go all the way up to heaven because this is blood sport. This ain't church.
Yeah, and I think we're saying the same thing. And when I say raunchy, I'm talking about the language and all that, but still the forceful pushback. And like you say, playing the dozens, sometimes, that comeback can be so tough and so effective without being raunchy, what I call raunchy, just with the language and just going way below the belt and all that kind of stuff. I think you can still be effective with your pushback, like you say, not going as low as they did, still being higher, still being more
it's
respectable.
All relative. If they're all the way in the gutter.
Yeah, but at the same time, banging back. And I think that was your main point. I don't think we're banging back like we really could, like an Avenatti. Let me put it that way.
Right.
Avenatti is masterful at hitting back in a way that's not as raunchy as Trump, but it's just as effective because they see a tough guy who's pushing back and who's not going to be messed with.
Yeah, no, but I think
we're lacking that type of personality wherever we can find it.
Right now, today, we need to start calling him Poontang.
Okay.
or you need to call him, or just call him an inanimate object that associates with him. Say, "What's up, Deutsche Bank?
Yeah.
Good morning, Deutsche Bank. What you doing today?" I mean, just do that. I mean, that would energize people. That's okay. We coming back. That's what we doing. Thank you, brother.
Like the guy in North Carolina who started the 45. That type of stuff.
Yeah.
Just come back with something.
Yeah, we got to come back. We got to come back. Thank you, Ben.
Yeah. All right.
Enjoy
your
your day.
Mark.
All right, take care now. Peter's in Massachusetts. Peter, God bless you. Good morning. Get ready for impeachment.
Hey, good morning, Mark. I was hoping maybe you could help myself and perhaps some other listeners understand a little bit about some of these issues that we have that we're afraid that the Supreme Court might overturn, specifically ACA and Roe versus Wade. It's my understanding that none of those are in the Bill of Rights, and therefore the ideology of who's on the Supreme Court does come into play to either establish it to begin with or overturn it secondly. Is that correct or is that incorrect?
That because they're not in the Bill of Rights, somebody on the Supreme Court could threaten it?
No, well, you're right. So in other words, could it be established as law based on somebody's ideology who's on the Supreme Court, or conversely overturned based on the ideology of who's on the Supreme Court? Because to my understanding, neither one of those two appear in the Bill of Rights. So is it interpretation that allows it to become enforced, or is it?
That's what the Supreme Court does. It interprets the law in relationship to the Constitution.
So for both sides, both liberal or conservative, if you would, or even middle of the road, it's the most important thing that would be the ideology of those who sit on the Supreme Court. Is that also correct?
Correct.
So when Roe versus Wade or even the ACA were both enacted, then the courts swayed to the left, presumably. Is that true?
No. The court swayed to morality.
Well, who determines morality?
Okay, so let's put it to the test. Brown versus Board, was that a left decision?
I don't believe it was.
All right, so that you made my point. Every decision is not partisan. Some decisions are right. They are the right thing to do.
But the threat to either side then would just simply be ideology, regardless if you're for it or against it. So I guess the
and your ideology can be a moral ideology, a righteous ideology, a fair and human ideology.
Well, it depends on how you look at it, because from my perspective, if there's if a woman is pregnant and that child has
no. Let's deal with slow down for a minute. Let's deal with foundation, because you're trying to be slick. You just agree with me that Brown versus Board was not a left decision. That superseded partisanship, Brown versus Board, did it not?
Yes.
So why wouldn't a woman having the rights over her own body supersede partisanship? Why would that have to be left or right?
Well, I would first argue with you that
of course you would.
does not want a woman to have control over her body. They want components of control over her own body, and it's not full control. And if you that's ignorant and ridiculous. But I'll allow you to go ahead and hang yourself, and then you'll allow me to completely take it apart, because I already know what you're going to say. But go ahead. That sounds good. So from your from
and you're a man, and you're a man, so you know more about what a woman needs. But go ahead.
Never said that. But from a perspective, I just want to understand, what do you or most people on the left consider a woman to be? Is it defined by age or maturity of a body, or what? Because we have to establish that first.
Brittany, he asked me, what do I consider a woman to be?
Well, when does a child become a woman? When does a girl become a woman? When you say a woman's right to choose, who are you talking about? So for me, a woman is somebody that's 18 years of age and then has control over her own body. But I don't think that you believe that. I think that you believe it's much younger, and I'm just trying to establish that.
And listen, dude, listen. What you're doing is filibustering. You said you were going to make a point, and I was going to allow you to make it. Don't ask me a doggone thing. Make your stupid point so I can rebut it.
Well, here's my point. When you say that you want women to have control of their bodies, it's limited to abortion and maybe some other things. So let's just take that.
No, it's not limited to abortion. I want women to be in power. I want women to have better jobs. I want him to have fair wages. You don't want that. Your party doesn't want that at all. You just want to force a woman to be barefoot and pregnant, but you don't want women in charge of anything. Don't project that onto me. You're the one who doesn't want women to have but so much. You don't want women to have any power. You just want to have control over the babies that are in their womb, who aren't even formed yet, who aren't even here yet. That's what you want to control. That's all there is to it.
Not at all, sir. And I'll tell you why.
Did you vote for a woman for president? Did you vote for a woman for president?
No. All
right, then that proves my point. That proves my point.
No, it doesn't prove your point.
It does prove. What woman have you ever voted for elected office? Name one.
Shamefully, and I'm embarrassed to say this now, is I reside, even though I'm calling from Massachusetts, I do business here. I reside in New York State. I voted for Jill DeBrand, and I'm disgusted over it. Disgusted.
Yeah. Well, all right. So anyway.
So let me finish my point.
Go ahead and finish your point. But you're disgusting.
Well, that's okay. So a 14-year-old.
No, it's not. It's okay. It's okay to be disgusting.
decides that she wants breast augmentation because of her self-esteem, so that's control over her body. You're okay with that, since women should have full controls over the body.
No,
See, the
no,
oh my
no,
God
no,
part
no,
is
sexist
right.
man. Let me explain to you how this works, sexist man. You're so sick and so you have such a negative view of women that you believe that happens.
No, I have a negative view of people like you.
I'm talking, Peter. Don't interrupt me. Don't interrupt. Let me school you a little something. Let's show the world how sexist you really are.
Okay.
Roe v. Wade gives a woman a right to privacy. It gives a woman a right to make the best decisions for her body in consultation with whomever she chooses. Be that her minister, her parent, her loved ones, her significant other. Why don't you trust women to do that and make the right decision? You don't trust them to do it. So as a sexist, controlling white man, you have to step in and come up with some obscure, ridiculous scenario where we got to step in and save women from themselves because some of them are too young to know what decisions to make. Who are you people? They're not going to consult you. You don't know any of these people. These people have their own individual decisions to make in their lives. Trust them to do the right thing. That's what self-determination is. But you're obsessed over that. It has nothing to do with you. Men need to get out of trying to control women's bodies. It has nothing to do with you, Pete, in Massachusetts. Absolutely nothing. Nothing. Nothing.
Mark,
nothing. You can do whatever you want to do with your body. You can do whatever you want to do. And nobody questions it. Nobody. You can go have a vasectomy today, and you should. But nobody can question that. Who in the hell are you to question or decide or have some influence over what any other human being equal to you has to do with their body? What makes you think you have a right to do that, fool?
Because I'm a parent of a daughter. That's
well. Then you address that's your individual daughter. You deal with your daughter and mine. My daughter. Everybody else's daughter is none of your damn business. Mind your business.
Exactly. And conversely, nor is mine. So in other words,
so how am I? I'm standing up for your daughter's right to make her decision. How am I intervening in her self-determination, stupid Peter?
It's very simple, because the ignorant people on the left believe that a 14-year-old should be solely left to make a decision.
Ignorant devil. I just said. I named 3 or 4 different people in consultation, including parent. When did I say that a 14-year-old should solely make that decision? I did not say that. I just listed. No, Peter. Did I not? Wait, Peter. Did I just not list consultation? Filibuster, stupid man. Did I not just list consultation? You've lost the argument. You're making up stuff. Nobody believes that. That is a fantasy you have, and it's sick. You have your own fantasy about little girls being out here alone, doing stuff. That's crazy, man. How old is your daughter?
It's not crazy.
How old is your daughter?
Well, right now she's 16.
And your daughter believes like you believe?
As far as what?
She's not going to tell him.
Does your daughter feel the way you feel? That's a yes or no question.
Obviously can't be honest with him.
Does your daughter support a woman's right to choose, or does she believe what her crazy father thinks?
No, she believes, as I do, a woman's right to choose. But regardless of what you're saying now, you know damn well that there's enough people on your side to think that children.
I know that you are a sexist pig. That's what I know.
Well,
that is beyond a shadow of a doubt.
Hey, Mark, you started with the
Peter,
insult.
you realize that a 14-year-old can't walk into a women's health clinic and just get an abortion, right? Like, there's consultations with doctors, and beyond that,
What about parents?
What do you mean, what about parents? That's what I'm talking about.
Peter, you denying I use the word parents? Are you denying that?
Hey, Mark.
No. Answer my question, yes or no. Are you denying that I use the word parents?
Show her some
Are you
respect.
denying, stupid, that I use the word parents? Yes or no?
Show her respect and allow her to talk. You criticize.
Don't do that.
Mark shows me respect every day. I don't. What you are saying is disrespectful to women in general, and your daughter, who honestly, I feel terribly for her, because she definitely can't be honest with you about, having her own autonomy as a woman in this world, because you don't support that, and as it's for her to have any kind of individuality. And as I was saying, hold on. Oh, what? I'm sorry. Didn't you just tell Mark not to interrupt me, to respect me? Yeah. So Anyway,
he doesn't have a daughter.
A 14-year-old can't roll up into a Planned Parenthood and say, "I'd like an abortion." They're just going to open her up there. Like, that's not how it works, man. It just
He doesn't have a daughter. You don't have a daughter.
well,
you don't have a
I
daughter.
feel
He's
bad
lying.
for her if he does.
He's lying.
but-
He's lying. I know this kind of troll. He's lying. You're lying. You do not have a daughter. You're lying. You don't have a daughter. Have a nice day. I'm done with it. We've been through this before. We've been through this before, and we've talked to you before, and you've lost. I'm sorry.
How you just got done saying a child cannot.
866-99-SIRIUS 866-997-4748. I'm done with it. Let's take a break. We'll come back. Get your calls, more of your calls. Sirius XM Progress 127, Resistance Radio. Get woke, get ready for impeachment. This is MIP.